I'm finding that my daily experience in my business as well as in my personal pursuits regarding creativity always inspire these episode themes. And since we're still in the season around the hidden realities of being a solopreneur, I think that it's really important to talk about just kind of like the things that come into play that we don't really address from a practical standpoint, like we do sales or marketing or how we treat clients or building a referral program or whatever the business communications du jour topic is. One thing that I have found really missing in a lot of solopreneur efforts to come up with new either services or creative outlets or whatever it is they come up with an idea and they share it before it's fully incubated. So this episode is about protecting the seed and really savoring the creative incubation process of ideas. Welcome to My Solopreneur Life. I'm Terry Pappy, your gracious host, and I am so glad you're here. I have a wonderful episode for you. Sit back, relax, and let's have some real talk about what it is to be a solopreneur. What's cool about being a solopreneur is we have total freedom to come up with new ideas on how we communicate about what we do, to actual services. And I remember when I read Pia Silva's book, her first book, she has a second one out now, and it's called Badass Your Brand. And it gave me a great idea on how to shift how I present my work, because for the longest time, I was charging hourly, number one. I was spending way too much time putting a proposal together that had strategy in it, that had all different kinds of important tactical things that my prospect hadn't really considered, and I wouldn't win the business. And here I do all this work in a proposal, and I wouldn't win the business. So when I read that book, and Pia poses, and still to this day, she speaks a lot about this in her new book as well. When you charge for a proposal, when you stop charging hourly, when you package up your services in such a way that the delivery is that much more efficient and the results are that much greater, it's the way to go as a solopreneur. It just makes it so much easier to sell. But I'm not going to get into that. What I'm going to talk about is when I had my idea for Better 3, like a lot of people ask me who are just meeting me for the first time, and they say, why is your business named Better 3? And what is the 3 in Better 3? And I came up with this as a result of the work I was doing in probably my first 5 years. What I was finding was that my clients did not really understand their customers or their clients. Their communications were all over the place. They were inconsistent. They were not professional. They were missing a lot of pieces, like they didn't have any print collateral. And then the third thing was they didn't really have any type of customer experience or customer advocacy or customer referral programs, which would help them grow their business without investing in marketing. And also getting more wallet share from their existing customers and clients. Because I was working with clients and learning these things just out of working with them. I'd ask them questions and they'd be like, well, I think this, or they'd be real general. And I'm like, well, it'd be helpful if I knew a little bit more, because then I can write copy that speaks right to your ideal client avatar. So where I took that was I started doing qualitative research where I'd get on the phone or on a Zoom call and interview my clients, customers and clients, and just talk to them about what their world was like. And so I was able to gather the insights and the information. That became the first of 3 in Better 3, which was better understanding about who your client is, what they're dealing with, and all that. That way you can communicate and market and prospect in a way that's really clear and speaks right to that target client's problem and what they're thinking and what they're looking for. The second one was the professional communications all over the place. And that's what I went to college for. That's what I have a degree in. And that's what I was trained to do all through my career, was how to develop professional communications. Everything from a website to corporate ID to marketing material, product sheets, print collateral, direct mail, billboards, show booths. I mean, any kind of communication in a two-dimensional or a digital format is part of your brand. It's all how you show up in the world, and make it consistent, make it professional, and put the communications in the right buckets. So if you don't need print collateral, just keep it all digital or do video. I mean, there's a lot of different tactical executions. So that was the second one. That became better communications. And then the third one, all about customer experience. So it became better relationships. So everything from customer experience to creating advocacy to really understanding your client and your customers through just working with them, which helps you deliver more value and also create referrals and advocacy. Those were the three kind of buckets that I came up with. In those early days, when I got this idea, and this is before I read Pia's book, okay? So there were like two big milestones in my business when I started and I came up with Better 3, because the very first business name I came up with was Terry Pappy Creative Services, because I was just freelancing and it was hourly and it's all I knew. But working with clients and discovering these things, I came up with a better model for my business, and I rebranded and renamed the business officially. It became Better 3. That was probably my first big idea, from the standpoint of coming up with an idea and this model that I had. And the early stages of it, it wasn't quite fully fleshed out. I had to really look at what I was learning from my clients and then lay it out into the right framework, which took time. And the more I let it percolate, the more I let it kind of settle in, the more it felt right. And I really trusted my intuition with this. And then it was easy for me to rebrand. Ever since then, it probably took place, I don't know, 2008, 9, 10, somewhere around there. It was like my first 5 years. And I feel so much more, I don't want to say legit, but like I have a real framework with what I work in. And when people ask, I just tell them, hey, better understanding of your customers so you know how to talk to them and where their pain points are. Better communications, so you're putting the right materials and the right messaging out there that gets people to buy. And then better relationships, so you create advocacy and referrals from your existing client base. That's pretty straightforward. My last episode where I talked about explaining the how, I don't explain that to everybody. I don't say, well, this is how I run my business. Better understanding, blah, blah, blah. I only explain it that way, that last brief way, when somebody says, what does Better 3 mean? Or because it is kind of different, right? As far as the name of a business. I mean, goodness gracious, because domains are so hard to find these days. The names of businesses that they're coming up with and the spellings are very challenging at times. But that's kind of where we're at, because the marketplace is so flooded with similar named companies. I digress. So the Better 3 model has stuck with me for 15 years, if not longer. And I love it. And that was a great idea that I allowed to incubate. It wasn't something I went on social media or was telling all my clients, hey, look, this is what I do now. I wasn't going to the how of it. It was more a guide for me internally to know these are the 3 areas that I want to be really, really good at. And I want to use them and leverage them with each other like a Venn diagram to create really great business and great relationships with my clients. And to this day, the bulk of my business comes through referral. And I still have, in fact, my original client just this last week came back and said, I thought you retired. And I was like, retired? Are you kidding me? So I got a long way to go before that number hits. And he's like, well, this is great because I got some work for you. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. But he still uses the original website that I built for him, and I've done tons of work for him. He does conferences, so I did his exhibit booth and his print collateral, his ads, you name it. It was just super fun to work with him and do all this, and I'm glad he's returned to work with me again. This is a digression episode, I guess. That was my first turnstile as far as a big change in coming up with a new idea. The second one was after I read Pia Silva's book, as I started to tell you. And that second one was how I structured how I sell what I do. And it was all about packaging things. And this is what I actually teach my clients to do. Instead of me saying, okay, I build websites, or, oh, okay, I can design a brand kit for you, or corporate identity, or I can do all this print collateral, which are just little tactical things. After reading her book, I was like, first of all, I'm going to now charge for proposals. Secondly, there's a process that I go through when I work with a client. And it always starts with understanding who they are, and then building a strategy, and then out of that strategy, find agreement. What we do from there is we execute the deliverables. Does it mean building a website? Yeah. Building a platform, building a lead generation system, any of that stuff, as well as anything in print or anything in design or anything in social media. Those are all the tactical things that get implemented. And then the final thing that I do is provide ongoing support. And as I mentioned, I have a client that came back. He's got a couple things that he wants me to either update or do that's new based on where he's at with his business. And these are all really important things to be able to provide support for ongoing. And I find that in the work that I do, communications, marketing, business development, it's all about being able to continue providing service to my clients. That's really important to me. And that's my customer experience, is sticking around instead of saying, okay, great, your stuff's done, have a nice life, which I hate to say it, but a lot of agencies, especially the small ones, even freelancers, they'll go and they'll build something, they'll get paid, and they'll disappear. They won't provide ongoing support. Or if they do, they charge an arm and a leg for it. And it's so unnecessary. I always try to make it a relationship first, and whatever support they need, they can always call me up and say, hey, Terry, I need this, that, or the other. And my clients really appreciate that, because over time, I get to know so much about them and their business. We become friends. And it's one of those things that I really cherish in the work I do as a solopreneur. But what was happening was, after I read that book, Pia Silva's book, I got so excited about especially the packaging of things. And I came up with my names, and I did all this stuff to follow her model and started using it out in the marketplace. And I was incredibly successful with it because it was smart. It was based on who I was working with, how I was delivering my services, and what worked best for my clients. But when I first started doing it, before I really fully integrated it into my business and really had good sea legs where it was proven, I fine-tuned it enough where it's really dialed in and really working. I started talking about it. I started posting about it. I started raving about Pia Silva and her book, which she, of course, appreciated. I had her on my first podcast, Simplify and Multiply. And what happened was, I don't believe that I really fully was able to benefit from shifting to that model because I rushed talking about it too much. I didn't allow the time to have it ferment and have it kind of incubate on its own legs. And that incubation is part delivering it to my clients and kind of water testing it, making sure it worked okay, learning how to talk about it in a way that wasn't all like Terry talking about how she works. Well, the first thing is the KISS marketing map, and then blah, blah, blah. And so those were good lessons for me to learn. This also applies to any creative endeavor. As I mentioned in my last episode, I started a writing group, which means creativity, time to create, time to write. What's the next book project? For me, a tendency would be, oh, I'm going to write a book about this, or I'm going to write a book about that, or I'm going to write another mystery, or I'm going to do this. And you start talking about it before you've really allowed it to take shape. And when you do that, it diminishes the energy around the idea. So let's go ahead and get into unpacking what I'm talking about. So when you have a creative idea, because as a solopreneur, we have immense freedom. We have to build our own boundaries. We don't have people sitting around us in other cubes. We don't have a team that we're part of necessarily. We work from home. We work in isolation. We travel a lot. We work with our clients. We're always busy doing project work and things like that. And so when we get an idea, whether it's something related to our business or something personal, and we come up with this really great idea, ideas are a dime a dozen. It's what you do with that idea that matters. As an idea, because we're all creative, and I had an episode a while back, a couple episodes back, about creativity. So refer to that if you haven't listened to it, because I'm not talking about creativity in the sense of being an artist. I'm talking about bringing something into reality that wasn't there before because of the power of your mind and the power of your desire. And any idea that you come up with is charged with energy. However, it's kind of like when you're making a cake and you have batter and you have all the ingredients that go in the batter, and there's the idea. But you still have several stages to go before you can sit down with that fork and slice through that chocolate cake. Oh, my mouth is watering as I'm thinking about it. You need to obviously finish the ingredients. You got to mix it. You have to turn the oven on. You have to pour it in the greased pans. You have to put the pans in the oven. You have to put the timer on. You have to, make sure that when you stick the toothpick in the middle, it comes out clean. That's how you know it's done. Then you got to let it cool on the racks. And then you got to turn it upside down and then on the racks. And then you got to stack the layers together, put the icing on, and then you got to finish the outside. And then you got to... So as you can see, there's many stages to just simply making a cake beyond the eggs and the flour and the sugar and the cocoa powder if you're making a chocolate cake. And I sound like I'm in the kitchen a lot, but actually I am a terrible cook. And I shouldn't say terrible. I'm actually a good cook, but I just don't have a strong desire to get fancy with myself in the kitchen from the standpoint of cooking a fancy meal, because it's just me. So I keep my cooking for myself very, very basic. Anyway, but boy, I tell you what, my mouth just filled with saliva just talking about chocolate cake. I bet yours did too. Anyway, when you have those ideas, it's really hard to not run out in the middle of the street and go, oh my gosh, I just have this great idea for my business, or this great service that I want to start offering, or this great idea for marketing something. When you have those ideas, use your creative engine to soften and start fleshing them out. So that way you're controlling the energy leaks. Okay. So if you, for example, you get so caught up, I know I do, with the excitement of a new idea, like this new writing group that I'm doing. I am so excited about this thing. And the energy is just swirling around me, and I've got these ideas, and my tendency, this is just me specifically, is to want to manage it, like over manage it, over control it, or like turn it into this, or I can also do this. And next thing you know, I'm overburdening myself as a facilitator of this group. I want to be an attendee. I want to be a writer in the group. I don't want to have to manage all the other writers. I set this up so I would have a space to write with other writers. And it's funny because I'm catching myself do that. And that's a sign of experience and maturity when it comes to ideation. Creative problem solving is a science around creativity. Founded by Osborne Parnes, it's a 6-step methodology for creative problem solving. And one of the steps is divergent brainstorming. And that's basically when you get a bunch of Post-it notes or a big piece of paper and you just write all your ideas down. I mean, no matter how stupid or ridiculous, there's no governors on it. You just go crazy and just write all these ideas down, or do it on a whiteboard, or however you want to execute it. You want to get all those down. That's divergent brainstorming. And then the next step in that process is convergent brainstorming. So it's where you take the crazy ideas and you get rid of those, and then you refine down to the good ideas, and then you continue to bring those down together to really isolate the direction you're going. Well, that entire 6-step process is very involved, and it has all those 6 steps. I just gave you 2. And it's all about giving those ideas time to grow, time to percolate, time to grow roots. And obviously, if you're planting a seed in the ground, you don't want to yank it out of the ground when it's just a sprout. You want to give it a chance to grow. Think about your ideas the same way. When you are tempted to talk about it, when you are tempted to share it with a bunch of friends or whatever, like, oh my gosh, I have this great idea, I'm going to go do this. Well, first of all, ask yourself, why are you feeling the need to do that? Is it because you want to share the excitement? Or is it because you want to prove the value or that the idea is valid? So validation can be part of that letting the cat out of the bag too early. So check yourself on that. Make sure that your reason for sharing is not where you're trying to buoy yourself or get that affirmation, that validation that your idea is a great idea. Just like when people, and this drives me crazy, in working with authors or wannabe authors, they're always like, oh, I've always had this great idea for a book. And they may talk a little bit about it. And I'm like, okay, how long has it been an idea? And they're like, well, I came up with the idea like 20 years ago or whatever, or it was based on something that happened 30 years ago, but they don't get in action about it. They just talk about it. This is a really good discipline for you to learn how to allow the energy of an idea to build. Because remember, if it's an idea that you originated in your brain, and it came from wherever, you were inspired, you saw a gap in the marketplace, you saw your clients struggling with something that you're like, I need to capitalize on that. I'm going to create a service that addresses that. Fantastic, right? But it's energy that you need to allow to grow. Your subconscious will continue to work on it. And I have really enjoyed understanding this principle about allowing the seed to grow its roots and to savor the experience of the creative process of it coming into being. And there are so many times when I would come up with an idea and the original inception of that idea and how it ended up like becoming reality were very different. And it's because I allowed it to percolate. I allowed it to take different shapes. I didn't go out and tell everybody about it and say, hey, what do you think of this idea? So catch yourself if you're trying to look for validation. A great thing you can do is if you have that need, well, first of all, you can always talk to me about it and I can help you with that. But sit down and journal about it. Write about why you want to validate it. Write about why you're excited about it. Write about the experience of allowing it to grow. Start having some fun with it and do some divergent brainstorming. Think of ways you can expand on it, turn it on its side, have fun with it that way. And when you're doing that, you'd be surprised at some of the cool things that might come out of it. Because remember I was saying, your subconscious is continuing to build and grow and develop and evolve that idea. Because it's always driven by a desire. And that desire could be, I want to make more money. I want to be happier in my business. I want to take better care of my clients. I want to be in better shape. I want to have a better relationship. I want to make more money. I want to make more money. I want to make more money. That's an ongoing thing for solopreneurs, isn't it? And so when you do the energy leak, in other words, when you're telling people about it to get validation or just because you're so excited, you're like a happy puppy. You're like, oh my God, I'm so excited about this idea. That's how I am about this writing group. I'm telling people that like are not even in the community like you about this writing group. And I can only take 10 people and they have to be in my community. And it's just so funny, but because I'm so excited about it, that I want to shout it from the rooftop. So it's a very normal thing to do that, but make sure you're doing it at the right time. I wasn't shouting or telling anybody about it while I was thinking about it because it was a very inspired idea. And the inspiration came from me, meaning I wanted to be in a writer's group and I couldn't find one that I aligned with in my community or in my area. And I looked for some online, just was not having any luck. So it was almost like I was being pointed. This is what I'm talking about letting things ferment, allowing your subconscious to unfold that idea. I was being driven to start my own so I could control the entire theme of it, structure of it, amount of people, where it was going to be held, and everything. Here's another clue. Everything started falling into place. It was like, doot, 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 and I was like, this is so easy. I built the web page for it. I built the ad for it, the flyer, so people would know about it. I filled out the paperwork at the community clubhouse and did all that. And everything was so easy and natural. It was like it was already done. And that's the benefit of allowing things to percolate. Some common things that happen when you do early sharing include you get somebody to question your idea, like, well, why are you doing that? Or someone offers advice. Well, you ought to do it this way and make sure you charge for it or whatever. Or someone misunderstands the idea and then they start asking you why or challenging you because it's still forming and you really may not have the right way to talk about it. And that's where the confusion sets in. What happens as a result of that early sharing is it creates self-doubt. You start second-guessing your idea. You start adding unnecessary complexity to it. You start thinking, well, maybe this wasn't a good idea, and you lose your enthusiasm for it, and it just deflates like a balloon let go that wasn't tied off. Ideas create energy that your subconscious is helping. It's kind of cooking it for you. It's mixing the batter before it's time to pour it in the pans. When you allow your idea to carry energy internally or within your own sphere, like you're journaling, or you may even have conversations with AI about it. I've done that myself, really helped me flesh out my writers group that I'm doing. And it gets you excited. The most important thing about ideation is you enjoying the ride. So when you come up with your next idea, keep it to yourself. Just keep it tucked in your little pocket there and don't rush out and share it with everybody. Do what you need to do to allow it to ferment and percolate and grow roots before you're out there putting it to practice. Because as a solopreneur, we get stuck in our little bubble. And when we get something that we're excited about, we want to go out in the street and say, hey, this is what's going on. I'm so excited. Don't open yourself up to criticism or confusion by other people who just don't hold that idea as dear as you do. And you will be surprised that you will be naturally led to the best form of whatever that idea is, whether it helps your business, your personal life, makes you more money, creates a greater relationship. Who knows? Whatever the reason is, it came from your desire, it came from your heart and your creative mind. So go out there and stretch those ideas, but don't share them before they're fully baked. And get yourself some chocolate cake while you're at it. Well, I know you're disappointed, but that's it for this episode. Listen, the great news is there's another one coming, so stay tuned. Anyway, I just want to make sure that you do the prompt if this episode had a prompt and you get that homework done because you're going to be a better solopreneur. How's that for a maternal finger shaking at you? Hey, listen, thanks so much for being here, for giving me time of your day, and, for taking it on. So if you want to learn more and stay connected with me, just head on over to mysolopreneurlife.com. Thanks a bunch. See you soon. That was pretty good. I think I'll keep that one.